What is going on, Tentacrew? My name is Billy the Squid, and Dark Souls 2 is the perfect game. I mean, just look at all the features that it has. It has perfect and precise hitboxes, non-obtuse or problematic level design, and it totally doesn't have a stat that gaslights you into thinking that you're worse at the game than you actually are until you put points into it. And despite all the wonderful features that this game has to offer, somehow modders have found a way to make perfection even better. All joking aside, we have hit a major milestone and breakthrough in Dark Souls 2 quality of life modding. One that could potentially make it so that people that already like Dark Souls 2 are going to enjoy the game even more, and people that didn't like Dark Souls 2 that much might be willing to give it another try after this one. And it's all in the sticks. So what is this holy grail of Dark Souls 2 quality of life modding, you might be asking? Well, it is actually going to make the joysticks function as intended, and it's called the Center Deadzone Mod. One of the more confusing design choices that was made with Dark Souls 2 during its development was the abandoning of the way that joysticks function from Dark Souls 1 with a new system in Dark Souls 2. In Dark Souls 1, you had a radial dead zone, where as you went away from the center of the joystick, the dead zone would exit, and you would get more control over either your camera or your character's movement. And in Dark Souls 2, they scrapped that and went with an axial dead zone system. Instead of having a circular dead zone area in the middle of the joystick, you had a square dead zone area, which in and of itself wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but it also branched out to the corners of each of the joysticks, making it so that each of those corners functioned less so than being straight up, straight down, left or right. This made it very awkward anytime you went to move your character or your camera around. It felt like it would hitch at certain points and make it basically feel like you only had 8 directions of movement, even though you technically have a full 360. This made it so that even the simplest maneuvers around tight spaces could feel a bit more precarious than they actually needed to be, considering you were snapping in one direction or another once your joystick moved a certain direction. And it also made camera movement a lot more jarring, where it really only felt like you could go left, right, up, or down, and the angles weren't really as easily accessible from the joystick. This also affected how your lock-on felt, where movement only felt like it was in 8 directions. And it made precision aiming with weaponry in free camera mode feel a lot less precise, again, because you didn't feel like you had a full range to accurately aim your weapons when free aim swinging. And this has been an issue that modders have been trying to fix for years, and there's been a few slightly successful alterations to make the game feel a little bit better. Some from the Steam client, where you can modify the Steam controller dead zones to feel a little bit better in this regard, but it still didn't get rid of those edges that kind of had those fine cutoff points from the axial dead zone itself. There were also other mods that attempted to fix this dead zone issue, but most of them were just band-aid cover-ups that, while they did improve the feel of the joysticks, it never felt 100% accurate and authentic to what Dark Souls 1 and future Dark Souls 3 ended up feeling. That is, until this week. Modder the Half-Grown Hollow has been working on the Dark Souls 2 Absolution mod, which is a Dark Souls 2 overhaul mod for people that don't like Dark Souls 2 to try to get them into this game and make it feel more like the other games. And through his workings on this project, he has cracked the code to actually change the exe file itself and completely removes the axial dead zone back for that radial dead zone that we are used to. And with the removal of the axial dead zone to a radial dead zone, this affects both player movement and camera movement, making all ranges of motion in this game feel a lot more authentic to that Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 3 experience. A lot of that float and clunk that Dark Souls 2 is kind of infamous for just magically disappears with this mod, and it is crazy how such a small minor change to just the dead zones of the joysticks can make the game feel fresh and new, and as it probably should have felt from day one. And while having more control over your character in a game that is known to be the clunkiest of the Souls games might be enough of a joy in and of itself, the fact that this is a direct change to the Dark Souls 2 exe is the biggest exciter of this whole thing, because this is going to open up a huge landscape of quality of life mods for Dark Souls 2 itself. It is to be noted that this mod is only applicable to the Scholar of the First Sin edition of the game, so if you do not have that version, you will not be able to take advantage of this. It is also worth noting that the axial dead zones only affected the controller version of the game, so if you are one of those mutants that plays Dark Souls games on your PC on mouse and keyboard, well, your experience was fine from the get-go. Due to insane modder and community support, Dark Souls 2 is evolving from one of the games of all time to truly one of the best Souls-like experiences out there. And in my opinion, how the game was originally intended to be played before development hell took over. The link for the Nexus mod download is down in the comments and the description of the video. And let me know in the comments below what you think. Is this a big move forward for Dark Souls 2? Are you as excited about this mod as I am? Is this something that might actually make you give Scholar of the First Sin Dark Souls 2 another try? Let us know. And if you want more content like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We will be doing more Souls-like content in the future. But until next time, Tana Crew, much love. Take care. Bye-bye.